Friends, thank you for being here today. In the escalating landscape of global trade and geopolitical strategy, the People's Republic of China has decisively played one of its most powerful yet frequently misunderstood winning cards. What if I told you that the smartphone in your hand, the electric car you might drive, and the advanced fighter jets that protect a nation's skies all share a common critical vulnerability, one controlled by a single geopolitical rival? And what if that rival just decided to turn that vulnerability into a weapon? With a move that sent shockwaves through international markets and defense ministries alike, Beijing has implemented sweeping new export curbs on a host of critical materials, transforming dormant economic leverage into an active tool of statecraft. This strategic maneuver targets not only the well known category of rare earth elements, REEs, but also extends to lithium ion batteries, graphite, and even synthetic diamonds, materials that form the bedrock of the 21st century global economy. While the official justification for these restrictions has been cited as the protection of national security, the timing of the announcement, strategically deployed just days before a high stakes summit between the leaders of the United States and China, leaves little doubt as to its true intent. It was a clear, unambiguous signal of Beijing's willingness to weaponize its control over essential supply chains. At its core, this conflict transcends the mere economics of mineral extraction and trade. It represents a fundamental struggle for control, for geopolitical power, and for the very future of technology itself. The new export controls serve as a direct and significant blow to the American military industrial complex, which has grown alarmingly dependent on these Chinese controlled resources. Furthermore, by encompassing materials crucial for the global transition to clean energy, China has positioned itself at the nexus of both national security and climate technology, two of the most defining issues of our time. The message from Beijing is stark. The path to advanced weaponry and a green future runs directly through its territory, and access to that path is no longer guaranteed. This calculated move has reshaped the dynamics of the U.S. China competition, escalating tensions, and forcing Washington to confront a strategic vulnerability that has been decades in the making. The era of assuming unfettered access to globalized supply chains is over. A new, more contentious chapter defined by resource nationalism and technological supremacy has begun. Now, to truly comprehend the magnitude of China's strategic gambit, one must first understand the unique and indispensable nature of the materials at the center of the conflict. Rare earth elements, often referred to as REEs, comprise a group of 17 elements on the periodic table, including the 15 lanthanides, along with scandium and yttrium. Their name is something of a misnomer. Contrary to what it suggests, these elements are not exceptionally rare in terms of their geological abundance within the Earth's crust. Their true value and the source of their criticality lies not in their scarcity, but in their extraordinary atomic structures, which grant them unparalleled magnetic and conductive properties. These unique characteristics make them essential, irreplaceable components in a vast array of modern technologies, functioning as the vitamins of the industrial world needed in small quantities, but absolutely vital for performance. The applications of REEs span the entire spectrum of modern life, from mundane consumer goods to the most sophisticated instruments of national power. In the commercial and industrial sectors, they are the silent engines driving the modern economy. The powerful, lightweight, rare earth magnets they produce are fundamental to the motors in electric vehicles, EVs, and the generators in wind turbines, placing them at the heart of the global clean energy transition. They are critical for data centers that power the internet, and they are present in countless high tech consumer electronics, from the vibrant phosphors that create the colors on a smartphone screen to the miniaturized components that allow for powerful computing in a handheld device. Their role in national defense is even more profound. The United States military relies heavily on rare earth magnets and components for its most advanced weapon systems. These elements are indispensable for the precision guided munitions that rely on sophisticated targeting systems, for the powerful radar arrays that detect threats from hundreds of miles away, and for the quiet, efficient motors that propel nuclear submarines through the ocean depths. A modern fighter jet, such as the F 35, contains hundreds of pounds of rare earth materials, which are essential for its advanced sensors, electronic warfare suites, and control systems. Without a reliable supply of these elements, the technological superiority that has long been the cornerstone of American military doctrine is placed in serious jeopardy. The challenge of securing these elements is compounded by the immense difficulty of processing them. While Res may be geologically abundant, they are rarely found in concentrated, easily mineable deposits. Instead, they are typically commingled with other minerals, often in low concentrations, requiring a complex and arduous process of extraction and separation. This process is not only technically demanding and expensive, but also fraught with severe environmental hazards. The extraction often involves the use of harsh chemicals and acid leaching agents to separate the valuable elements from the surrounding ore. If not managed with the utmost care and under stringent regulatory oversight, these processes can lead to significant environmental degradation, including soil contamination and the pollution of groundwater with toxic and sometimes radioactive byproducts. It was precisely this environmental challenge, coupled with high labor costs, that led many Western nations, including the United States, to offshore their rare earth processing capabilities decades ago, inadvertently paving the way for China's eventual dominance in the sector. You see, China's current stranglehold on the global rare earths market is not the result of a geological accident or a fortunate discovery. It is the calculated outcome of a deliberate, patient, and decades long industrial strategy. The divergence in the paths taken by the United States and China can be traced back to the 1980s. During this period, the United States, once a world leader in rare earth production centered at the Mountain Pass mine in California, began to systematically scale down its mining and processing operations. This decision was driven by a confluence of factors, including mounting environmental concerns over the hazardous waste produced during processing, rising labor costs, and a short sighted focus on immediate profitability over long term strategic security. American industry and policymakers failed to recognize the burgeoning importance of these materials, viewing them as a niche market rather than the cornerstone of future technology. In stark contrast, while the US was retreating, China was advancing with strategic foresight. Under the guidance of Deng Xiaoping, who famously remarked, "The Middle East has oil, China has rare earths," Beijing recognized the immense geopolitical potential of these minerals. The Chinese government began to aggressively invest in the sector, subsidizing state owned enterprises, developing advanced metallurgical expertise, and ramping up production on an unprecedented scale. By leveraging lower labor costs and critically operating under far weaker environmental standards, Chinese producers were able to flood the global market with an abundance of low cost, rare earth products. This influx of cheap material systematically undercut competitors around the world, making it economically impossible for mines and processing plants in the US, Australia, and elsewhere to remain profitable. One by one, they shuttered their operations, leaving the field almost entirely to China. By the time Western governments began to awaken to the strategic implications of this shift, a near monopoly had been firmly established. The true genius of China's strategy, however, lies in its focus on controlling the most critical choke point in the supply chain, not just mining, but processing and refining. While China currently accounts for approximately 70% of the global mining of rare earth ores, its dominance in the midstream and downstream stages of the supply chain is even more absolute. It controls over 90% of the global capacity for the complex metallurgical processes required to separate individual rare earth oxides and refine them into high purity metals and alloys. This creates a critical dependency that ensnares even countries with their own mining operations. For instance, even when rare earth ores are extracted from the ground in allied nations like the United States or Australia, the resulting concentrate is often loaded onto ships and sent to China for the crucial final stages of processing. Without access to Chinese refineries, the raw ore is of little practical use. The statistics paint a stark picture of this strategic dominance. Today, China holds nearly 50% of all known global rare earth reserves, ensuring a long term supply. Its control extends beyond just REEs. It also supplies 60% of the world's antimony, a critical mineral used in flame retardants and military applications, and processes nearly one third of all refined critical materials worldwide. This comprehensive control over the entire ecosystem, from mine to magnet, grants Beijing immense leverage. It can influence global prices at will, reward friendly nations with stable supply, and punish geopolitical rivals with restrictions and embargoes, a power it is now beginning to exercise with confidence. The West's short term economic calculations in the late 20th century have resulted in a profound strategic vulnerability in the 21st. The consequences of this decades long strategic oversight have now culminated in a national security vulnerability of staggering proportions for the United States. The nation's defense industrial base, the very arsenal of democracy, has become deeply and dangerously reliant on its primary geopolitical rival for the materials essential to its technological edge. A groundbreaking report by the defense analytics firm Gabelli, titled From Rock to Rocket, methodically details the extent of this dependency, revealing that America's most advanced and critical weapon systems are overwhelmingly built with minerals and components that originate in or are processed by China. This is not a peripheral issue affecting a handful of niche systems. It is a systemic weakness that permeates the entire American military apparatus. The sheer scale of this reliance is breathtaking. The Gabelli report found that an astonishing 80,000 individual components integrated across nearly 1,900 distinct U.S. military weapon systems contain minerals sourced from or processed in China. In aggregate, this means that a shocking 78% of all platforms within the Department of Defense DoD portfolio are touched by the Chinese supply chain. This vulnerability is not confined to a single branch of the armed forces, but is endemic across the board, creating a web of dependencies that would be extraordinarily difficult and time consuming to untangle. The report's findings serve as a stark indictment of a procurement strategy that has prioritized cost and efficiency over supply chain resilience and national security. Breaking down the numbers by military branch reveals an even more alarming picture. The U.S. Navy, which projects American power across the globe, is the most exposed. An incredible 92% of its 739 weapon systems, from submarines to aircraft carriers to Aegis cruisers, rely on Chinese sourced minerals for their advanced electronics, sonar, and propulsion systems. The U.S. Air Force, the guarantor of American air superiority, is not far behind, with 85% of its 302 distinct platforms, including bombers, fighters, and surveillance drones, dependent on these materials. The U.S. Army shows a 70% reliance across its vast inventory of tanks, helicopters, and communication gear, while even the agile Marine Corps has an over 60% dependency on Chinese imports for its critical equipment. To move from abstract statistics to a concrete example, consider the F 35 Lightning II fighter jet, the most advanced and expensive weapons program in American history, and the technological centerpiece of the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. Each F 35 aircraft contains over 900 pounds of rare earth elements. These materials are not optional, they are fundamental to the jet's fifth generation capabilities, including its powerful AN divided by APG 81 AESA radar, its sophisticated distributed aperture system for 360-degree situational awareness, and its advanced electronic warfare suite. Should China decide to fully restrict or halt the export of the necessary processed rare earths, the production lines for the F 35, and countless other critical defense systems could slow, stall, or grind to a complete halt. This is no longer a hypothetical threat. Beijing's recent actions demonstrate a clear willingness to use this dependency as a coercive lever, turning America's greatest military assets into potential strategic liabilities. Awakened to the grave threat posed by its supply chain vulnerabilities, the United States has finally begun to mobilize a serious, albeit belated, response, recognizing that market forces alone are insufficient to counter China's state driven industrial strategy. The American government, in conjunction with the private financial sector, has initiated a high stakes effort to onshore and diversify the entire rare earths ecosystem. This monumental undertaking involves significant public investment, innovative financial mechanisms, and a renewed commitment to rebuilding a domestic industrial base that has been dormant for decades. The goal is not merely to reopen a few mines, but to reconstruct the entire value chain from raw ore extraction to the fabrication of high performance permanent magnets. A central pillar of this new strategy is direct intervention and investment from the Department of Defense. Under the authority of the Defense Production Act, The DoD has committed nearly $540 million to support domestic and allied rare earth and critical mineral supply chains. This funding is being deployed through a unique and sophisticated financial strategy designed to de risk private investment in a market long distorted by Chinese price manipulation. Rather than relying on simple grants, the DoD is employing a suite of tools, including preferred equity loans and, most critically, the establishment of guaranteed price floors for domestically produced materials. This approach directly addresses the primary barrier to entry for Western firms: China's ability to crash global prices at will to bankrupt any emerging competitor. By guaranteeing a profitable price point, the U.S. government is creating a stable and predictable investment environment, thereby encouraging private capital to flow into these long neglected sectors. At the forefront of this industrial revival are several key corporate players. The most prominent is MP Materials, which owns and operates the Mountain Pass mine in California, the nation's only operational rare earth facility at scale. The company has become a flagship of the American effort, receiving a $400 million investment from the DoD and securing a $1 billion loan from financial giants Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan to expand its operations downstream into magnet production. Crucially, MP Materials benefits from a DoD price floor commitment of $110 per kilogram for neodymium praseodymium, NdPr, a key ingredient for permanent magnets. This price guarantee, set at nearly double the current volatile market rate, has made the company far more bankable and has sent a powerful signal to the market that the U.S. is serious about creating a viable alternative to Chinese dominance. With this support, MP Materials aims to aggressively ramp up its production of finished rare earth magnets from 1,000 metric tons in 2025 to 10,000 metric tons by 2028. Other companies are also playing vital roles in this burgeoning ecosystem. In Utah, Energy Fuels is ingeniously leveraging its existing license and infrastructure as a uranium processing facility to refine monazite sands, a high value feedstock rich in rare earths. The company is already producing NdPr oxide at a commercial scale with enough current capacity to supply approximately 1 million electric vehicles and has ambitious plans to expand its output to serve up to 6 million EVs. Meanwhile, a new wave of projects is emerging across the country, with companies like Ramco Resources working to extract rare earths from coal deposits in Wyoming, Vulcan Elements planning to manufacture magnets for the military in North Carolina, and Novion Magnetics in Texas developing innovative recycling and production techniques. Beyond virgin mining, the U.S. is also exploring alternative sources. Tech giant Apple has made a significant investment in MP Materials to develop a supply chain for magnets made entirely from recycled materials, demonstrating a growing interest in creating a more circular and sustainable domestic economy for these critical elements. Beyond these purely domestic efforts, U.S. strategy increasingly recognizes that true supply chain resilience cannot be achieved in isolation. A crucial component of this counter strategy is the strengthening of alliances and the promotion of what has been termed friend shoring, a deliberate effort to reorient supply chains away from adversarial nations and toward trusted partners and allies. This approach acknowledges that while onshoring production is the ideal for certain critical goods, it is not always feasible or economical to replicate the entire complex supply chain within US borders alone. Instead, the goal is to build a diversified network of reliable suppliers who share common democratic values and strategic interests, thereby creating a collective buffer against coercive economic tactics from any single nation. This diplomatic and economic initiative is being pursued through various international forums, most notably the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, the Quad, which brings together the United States, Australia, Japan, and India. Within this framework, Australia has emerged as a cornerstone of the Western world's strategy to diversify its rare earth supply. As one of the world's largest producers of rare earth ores outside of China, Australia provides a secure and reliable source of raw materials. Companies like Lynas Rare Earths, which operates the Mount Weld mine in Western Australia, have become strategically vital. Lynas is currently the only significant producer of separated rare earths outside of China with a processing facility in Malaysia, and is now, with the support of DoD funding, constructing a heavy rare earth separation facility in Texas. This collaboration is a prime example of friend shoring in action. Australian resources are being integrated with American industrial capacity to build a transnational supply chain free from Chinese control. Similarly, Japan, with its advanced manufacturing and technological prowess in magnet production, and India, with its untapped mineral reserves and growing industrial base, are seen as key partners in this long term effort to pool resources and dilute China's market power. This international cooperation is not limited to the Indo Pacific. The European Union has also awakened to its own vulnerabilities, launching its Critical Raw Materials Act to fast track mining and refining projects within the bloc and to forge strategic partnerships abroad, creating a parallel effort that reinforces the broader Western push for supply chain diversification and security. However, despite this surge of investment and renewed national focus, the path to breaking America's dependency on China for rare earth elements remains long and fraught with formidable challenges. The stark reality is that it takes decades, not mere years, to construct a fully independent, resilient, and economically competitive end to end supply chain. The process of discovering viable mineral deposits, securing permits, building mines, constructing complex refineries and magnet fabrication plants, and establishing the necessary supporting infrastructure is a monumental undertaking. Decades of neglect and offshoring cannot be reversed overnight. Consequently, experts project that the United States will likely continue to import nearly 30,000 tons of finished rare earth magnets annually all the way through the year 2030, as domestic production will struggle to keep pace with soaring demand from the EV, renewable energy, and defense sectors. The hurdles extend far beyond capital investment and physical infrastructure. Two of the most significant gaps in the American ecosystem are human and chemical. Over the past 40 years, as the industry migrated eastward, the United States has suffered a profound loss of its specialized metallurgical labor force. The deep tacit knowledge and hands on expertise required for the complex chemistry of separating and refining 17 similar elements now reside overwhelmingly in China. Rebuilding this human capital will require a concerted national effort focused on university programs, vocational training, and workforce development to cultivate a new generation of American metallurgists and chemical engineers. Furthermore, the rare earth supply chain is itself dependent on another supply chain, the production of specialized chemical reagents needed for the separation process. China is also a dominant global supplier of many of these essential chemicals, creating yet another layer of dependency that must be addressed to achieve true supply chain autonomy. In conclusion, the race for mineral independence has evolved from a niche economic issue into a matter of urgent national survival in a new era of great power competition. The United States has finally awakened to the threat and is taking bold and necessary steps to reclaim its industrial sovereignty. While achieving a complete decoupling from the Chinese supply chain in the short term of 2 to 5 years is an unrealistic goal, the immediate objective is to demonstrate tangible, incremental progress and an unwavering national resolve. The investments in companies like MP Materials and Energy Fuels, backed by the strategic financial commitments of the Department of Defense, are a crucial first step. The hope is that by translating years of policy rhetoric and legislative action into real, on the ground industrial capacity, the United States can send a powerful and unmistakable signal to Beijing. This signal is not one of imminent independence, but of a credible and determined effort to blunt China's coercive leverage, ultimately aiming to change its policy approach and restore a more stable and secure balance to the global supply of the world's most critical resources.